I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but sometimes when I'm washing dishes or brushing my hair before bed, I catch myself thinking about moments that didn't feel important at the time, but somehow changed everything. I guess that's why I'm finally telling this story. Not because I plan to, but because it keeps echoing in my mind, tugging at me as if it's begging to be let out. I didn't meet him during some magical season of my life. I met him in the middle of the aftermath, when my heart still felt like a cracked window barely holding together. People around me kept saying I looked fine, that I seemed strong, but I think they were just tired of asking if I was okay. And honestly, I was tired of answering. It's strange how you can survive something, walk away from it, breathe through it, and still feel like you're dragging invisible chains. That was me. I looked normal, talked normally, laughed at the right times, but inside I was swollen with pain, sore in places no one could see. And then he appeared. Not intentionally, not dramatically. He just showed up, like someone opening a door they didn't realize was locked. The first time I saw him, he wasn't doing anything impressive. He was sitting on a bench outside the community center, head down, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was holding his breath. I didn't pay much attention. I was too focused on staying upright, convincing myself that walking into that building was part of my new routine. Healing, whatever that meant. But something about him pulled my gaze back for a second, just long enough for him to look up, just long enough for our eyes to meet. You know when someone's eyes have a sadness that feels familiar? It was like that. I looked away immediately because it scared me, or maybe because it felt too honest. I didn't know then that this stranger would soon become the one person capable of touching wounds I'd buried so deeply I'd convinced myself they didn't exist anymore. Inside the building, I tried focusing on my tasks, making copies, sorting files, pretending to be invested in whatever volunteer duty I had signed up for. But my mind kept drifting back to him sitting outside. His stillness, his silence, how he didn't seem to belong anywhere, yet somehow looked like he'd been everywhere. The second time we saw each other, he spoke first. "You dropped this," he said, holding out my notebook. I remember freezing for a second. My notebook was where I scribbled everything I couldn't say out loud, parts of me no one had ever read. And he was holding it so carefully, almost reverently, like he knew it meant something but didn't dare peek inside. "Thanks," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "It was open," he added quickly, "but I didn't read it." Something in the way he said it, uneasy, sincere, made me believe him. And trust didn't come easily to me back then. After that, our encounters became regular. Not planned, not obvious. Just two people orbiting around the same places at the same times. Sometimes we exchanged a few words, sometimes just glances, but every interaction carried a weight that I tried not to analyze. He wasn't charming in the way novels describe. He was quiet, thoughtful, a little awkward, but there was warmth under the surface, like embers waiting for someone to breathe life into them. And for reasons I didn't understand yet, I felt safe around him. One late afternoon, as I was leaving the center, I found him sitting on the steps, staring at his shoes like they were telling him something important. "You always look like you're thinking too hard," I said before I could stop myself. He looked up surprised. Then he smiled, small, hesitant, almost sad. "Maybe I just have too much to think about," he replied. I sat beside him without thinking. It felt natural, as if we'd done it 100 times before. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. Nothing deep, nothing revealing, but there was something in the silence between our sentences that felt comforting, familiar, like two people hiding in the same storm. Before I left, he said something that stayed with me for days. "You seem like someone who sees more than she says." I wanted to answer, but the words tangled in my throat. No one had ever noticed that about me. Or maybe they had, and I just didn't believe them. But his voice carried no flattery, no agenda. Just observation. And it struck something I didn't know was still alive inside me. The next few weeks turned into a quiet rhythm. He started helping at the center too. Sometimes he carried boxes for me. Sometimes he handed me tools before I even asked. Sometimes we just worked in silence. But even silence felt easier with him. I remember one morning when it was raining. A slow, gentle rain that sounded like apologies. He walked in soaked, hair dripping onto his shirt. I laughed before I could stop myself. "You didn't bring an umbrella?" "I forgot it exists," he said, brushing water from his forehead. I handed him a towel from the supply closet and our fingers touched. Barely, just a brush of skin. But it sent a warmth up my arm that scared me. It reminded me that I could still feel. That some part of me still reacted to kindness, to closeness, to someone being there. But it also reminded me of the last time I'd felt something like that, and how badly it ended. So I pulled back. Not physically, but emotionally. I tucked that feeling into a pocket of denial and hoped it would stay there. He didn't push. He never pushed. And maybe that's why I couldn't ignore him. One afternoon, when most volunteers had already left, we stayed behind stacking donated supplies. I dropped a box and it crashed loudly, scattering items across the floor. I muttered something frustrated under my breath, and he laughed. Not at me, just at the situation. "You don't have to do everything alone," he said quietly, crouching beside me to help. "I'm used to it." "I know," he replied. I looked at him, startled. "How would you know that?" He hesitated, then said, "Because I'm the same." It was the first time he gave me a glimpse of something deeper. A crack in his calm surface. A whisper of his own pain. We didn't talk after that. We just cleaned up in silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like he had spoken a truth neither of us was ready to explain. Days passed. Then weeks. And slowly, without meaning to, he became part of my routine. Part of my thoughts. Part of the space inside me that I thought was permanently closed. But I still didn't know anything real about him. Not where he lived. Not his story. Not what had carved that sadness into his eyes. It was a Tuesday, ordinary, uneventful, when he finally told me something real. Something that unraveled the quiet distance he kept around himself. We were sweeping the main hall when he paused, leaning on the broom handle like it suddenly felt heavy. "Do you ever feel like people only see the surface?" he asked. "All the time," I answered. "But maybe that's our fault. Maybe we taught them not to look deeper." He looked at me, then really looked, and said, "I used to be different. Before everything changed." "What changed?" He hesitated. I could see him fighting with the words, as if saying them might reopen wounds he kept stitched by sheer will. "I lost someone," he said finally. "I didn't ask who. I didn't ask how. I just waited." He swallowed hard. "And I guess I never really came back from it." Something tightened inside me. Not pity. Understanding. Recognition. Because pain like that, you don't need details to understand its shape. "I'm sorry," I whispered. He nodded but didn't smile. "I didn't tell you because you remind me of someone who knows how to carry pain quietly. Someone who won't make it heavier." I felt my throat tighten. No one had ever said something like that to me. Not in that tone. Not with that honesty. We didn't talk much after that. But something between us shifted. A door quietly opened. A wall quietly lowered. And slowly, he began letting me see pieces of him. Tiny fragments spoken in accidental sentences, hesitant confessions, stories told without context. The more he revealed, the more I realized something unsettling. The sadness in his eyes wasn't just familiar, it was almost identical to mine. He didn't know my story yet. I didn't dare tell him. But there were moments, fleeting, quiet, when I felt like he already sensed it. One evening, as we were closing up the center, I was struggling to fix a jammed cabinet door. He came up behind me and placed one hand beside mine, gently nudging me aside. "Let me try." His fingers didn't touch me, but the closeness made my chest tighten. He fixed the door with one firm pull, then turned to me with a shy smile. "You loosened it," he said, as if he needed an excuse to justify why he stepped in. I rolled my eyes. "Sure I did." He laughed, and it was the first time I heard real lightness in his voice. It made something bloom unexpectedly inside me. Something soft, warm, and terrifying. Over the next days, I found myself looking for him more often, listening for his footsteps in the hall, watching for that quiet smile. And every time he appeared, something inside me unclenched just a little. But with that comfort came fear. The fear that if he got too close, he might see the parts of me I'd spent years hiding. The fear that if he knew everything, he would step back. Because isn't that what people do when they see the whole truth? One late afternoon, while we were sorting new donations, he suddenly asked, "Why don't you talk about yourself?" I froze. The question felt like it sliced straight into the part of me I kept locked away. I do talk about myself, I lied. No, he said softly. You talk around yourself. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know how he'd noticed. Some things are just hard to explain, I murmured. He nodded slowly, as if he understood more than I was willing to admit. You don't have to explain. Not if you're not ready. Something about his tone made me want to cry. Not because it was sad, but because it was gentle. And I wasn't used to gentle. For days after that, I avoided him a little. Not obviously, just enough to keep my heart from opening too quickly. But he noticed. And he didn't force anything. He simply stayed close without pushing close. But one evening, something happened that cracked me open in a way I didn't expect. I was leaving the center alone. It was getting dark, and the streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement. As I walked past the steps, I heard him call my name. Hey, wait. I turned and he jogged toward me, slightly out of breath. Are you okay? He asked, his brows furrowed. I'm fine, I said too quickly. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You don't have to be fine all the time. The words hit me like a gust of wind, stealing the breath from my lungs. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the sincerity radiating off him. I don't know your story, he said quietly, but I can tell you're carrying something heavy, and you don't have to carry it alone. Not with me. I felt my throat close, heat rising behind my eyes. I looked away, embarrassed by the sudden flood of emotion. But he didn't move, didn't look away, didn't retreat. For the first time in a long time, someone saw through me without tearing me open. Someone understood my silence without demanding explanations. And that terrified me, because that's when I realized he wasn't just healing my wounds. He was touching a part of me I thought was dead. A part I'd buried to survive. But I didn't know yet that every moment he was stitching pieces of me back together. He was unraveling parts of himself he'd kept hidden too. We weren't just two broken people helping each other breathe. We were two mirrors, reflecting wounds we didn't dare name. And without knowing it, he was healing his own pain through mine. But that part of the story, his part, was something I wouldn't understand until everything between us finally shattered. And I'm not sure either of us was prepared for that. I don't know why the air felt different that morning, but it did. Maybe it was me. Maybe something in me already sensed that things were shifting, even if I didn't want to admit it yet. I woke up with this strange tightness in my chest, like the world was holding its breath and waiting for me to notice. When I arrived at the center, he was already there. Leaning against the wall near the entrance, arms crossed lightly, gaze lost somewhere in the distance. He looked tired, not physically but in a deeper way. In a way that worried me. You okay? I asked, echoing the same words he'd once asked me. He blinked, pulled himself back from whatever thought he'd fallen into, and attempted a smile. Yeah, just didn't sleep much. I could tell it wasn't the truth. Not the full truth. But I didn't push. I figured he would tell me when he was ready. Inside, we worked together as usual, but the atmosphere between us felt heavier. There were long stretches of silence. Not the comfortable kind we'd grown used to, but the kind filled with unspoken thoughts and questions neither of us dared voice. Every now and then, he'd glance at me with an expression I couldn't read. It wasn't fear or sadness or confusion. It was all of those combined, twisted into something haunted. I tried to distract myself with tasks, sorting, lifting, rearranging, but my mind kept drifting toward him, toward that weight in his eyes, toward the way his hands trembled slightly when he thought I wasn't looking. When we were alone in the storage room, I finally spoke. You look like you're carrying something heavy, I said softly. He paused mid-task, exhaled deeply, and leaned his back against the wall. Yeah, he murmured. You could say that. Do you want to talk about it? I don't know. He rubbed a hand over his face. I'm not good at opening up. Neither am I. A faint smile tugged at my lips. But you don't have to tell me everything. Just tell me what you can. For a moment I thought he'd walk away or shut down. But instead he slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, legs bent, staring at the ground like it held answers. I've been trying to avoid this conversation, he said finally. Because once I say it, it becomes real again. I sat beside him, leaving a small space between us. "I'm here," I whispered. He took a shaky breath. The person I lost, it wasn't just someone close. It was someone I thought I was going to spend my life with. My chest tightened. "She got sick," he continued, voice barely audible. "And I wasn't the kind of man she needed me to be. I tried. God knows I tried. But in the end it didn't matter. She slipped away anyway." There was a crack in his voice that felt like a physical blow. I didn't move, afraid any reaction might shatter him completely. I keep thinking, if I had done something differently, maybe it wouldn't have changed anything, I interrupted gently. "You don't know that." "No, but you do. Deep down you do." His eyes glistened as he swallowed hard, jaw tightening as if he was fighting back more than tears, shame, guilt, words he'd never dared speak out loud. "I wasn't enough," he whispered. I shook my head softly. Sometimes love isn't about being enough. Sometimes it's about holding on even when everything falls apart. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. "I haven't talked about her in years. I didn't think I ever would again. Then why now?" He turned his head toward me slowly, and the vulnerability in his expression was almost unbearable. "Because you make it feel safe." My breath caught, not because it was flattering but because it was honest, raw, and something inside me recognized that safety too. I placed my hand on the floor, inches from his. Not touching, just close enough to say, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He stared at my hand for a long moment, then exhaled shakily. "There's more," he said. I nodded. "Take your time." He didn't look at me as he spoke next. "I wasn't just grieving her. I was grieving the person I was before she died. Because when she went, she took the best parts of me with her." I felt an ache spread through my chest. A cold, deep ache that mirrored the one he described. "You're still here," I whispered. "Am I?" "Yes," I said firmly. "You're just buried under everything you went through." He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his eyes softened, cracked, shifted. For a moment, it felt like we were suspended in the kind of silence that changes people. I didn't realize tears were sliding down my cheeks until he reached out slowly, hesitantly, and wiped one away with his thumb. His touch was gentle, almost reverent, and it made my breath hitch. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "For what?" "For making you cry." "You didn't make me cry," I said. "Pain recognizes pain. That's all." His hand lingered near my face for a fraction of a second too long, and in that moment I realized something terrifying. I was falling for him, not in a dramatic, sweeping way, not in fireworks, but in quiet cracks that widened every time he let me see a piece of his heart. We didn't talk much after that, but something fundamental between us had shifted. Trust had deepened, walls had thinned, and for the first time I sensed that he was not just healing me, I was healing him too. Over the next few weeks we became closer, not in obvious ways but in small, intimate ones. In the way he handed me tools before I asked. In the way I started remembering how he liked his coffee. In the way we trusted each other with silences. One evening as we packed up, a storm rolled in unexpectedly. Wind shattered against the windows, and thunder rattled the walls. He insisted on walking me home because, "There's no way I'm letting you walk alone in this." We hurried through flooded sidewalks, laughing nervously whenever lightning struck too close. When we reached my building, rainwater dripping from our clothes, I turned to him. "Do you want to come in for a minute? Just until the rain slows down." He hesitated only a second before nodding. Inside, everything felt strangely intimate. He walked around slowly, looking at the little pieces of my life scattered throughout my apartment. Books stacked on the floor, pictures on the fridge, a half-finished puzzle on the table. "This looks like you," he said. "What do you mean?" "It feels warm, lived in, real." I didn't know why that made me blush. I made tea. He sat on my couch, and when I handed him his cup, our fingers brushed again, this time lingering, slow, deliberate. We talked for hours. About nothing. About everything. And for the first time, I told him pieces of my own story, the parts I'd never voiced out loud. The betrayal that broke me, the loneliness that swallowed me afterward, the way I built myself back up with shaky hands. He listened, truly listened, And when I finished, he didn't offer advice or pity. He just said softly, "You deserved better." That simple sentence unraveled something inside me. Before I knew it, we were sitting closer. Too close. His knee brushed mine. My hand found the back of the couch, inches from his shoulder. The air thickened with something unspoken, but instead of leaning closer, he pulled back. Not dramatically, not coldly, just enough to break the moment. "I should go," he murmured. My heart sank. "Is it something I said?" "No," he said quickly. "It's me. I don't want to make a mistake." "What mistake?" He stared at the floor. "I don't want to get close to someone because I'm trying to fill a void, or because I'm still grieving something I should have let go of a long time ago." His honesty hit me like a quiet storm. "I don't want to hurt you," he whispered. "I care about you too much for that." I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what to feel. He left that night. Not abruptly, not angrily, just with a heaviness that made the room feel colder after the door closed. For days he kept his distance. Not completely, he still showed up at the center, still helped, still smiled. But the closeness was gone. The intimacy, the shared breaths. Every time I looked at him, my heart ached. Not because he had rejected me, but because I knew he was running from his own pain. Then one afternoon it all came crashing down. I found him outside the storage room, leaning against the wall, face pale, breathing uneven. "Hey," I whispered, stepping closer. "What's wrong?" He shook his head, pressing his palms to his eyes. "I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" "This." His voice trembled. "Feel something again. Let someone in. It scares the hell out of me. I'm not asking you to rush into anything, but you deserve someone whole." "So do you," I whispered. He looked up, eyes raw. "I don't think I know how to be whole again." "You don't have to be," I said gently. "You just have to be honest. Present. Human." He inhaled shakily. "And what if I break you instead?" I stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath. "You're not breaking me. You're healing me." He closed his eyes as if the words were too much. And without knowing it, I continued, "I think I'm healing you too." Something in him shattered then. Not painfully, but liberatingly. The kind of shatter that comes from carrying weight too heavy for too long. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine. His breath mingled with mine. His hands trembled near my waist, hovering, unsure, afraid to touch. "I'm so scared," he whispered. "So am I admitted. We stayed like that for a long time, two people clinging to the smallest thread of courage. Two broken souls learning how to breathe again. In that moment, we didn't kiss. We didn't confess love. We didn't make promises. We just existed. Together. In the most honest silence we'd ever shared. And that was enough. Over the next weeks, we learned each other slowly. Carefully. Gently. We didn't rush. We didn't force. We just allowed ourselves to heal side by side. There were setbacks. Nights he disappeared to grieve alone. Days I pulled away when memories clawed at my mind. But every time we found our way back to each other. Not because we were perfect, but because we understood brokenness. We understood each other. And as strange as it sounds, healing wasn't loud or dramatic. It was in the quiet. Sharing coffee, sitting in silence, holding hands on difficult days. It was in laughter we didn't know we could still produce. It was in small moments that stitched us together thread by thread. One evening, months later, we sat on the same bench where we first saw each other. He looked at me with eyes no longer haunted, but hopeful. "You know," he said softly, "I think the version of me she loved. I thought he died with her. And now," I whispered, "now I think he was just waiting." He reached for my hand. "Waiting for you." My heart clenched in the best possible way. I squeezed his hand gently. "And the version of me I buried. I think she's waking up too." He smiled, a real full smile. And in that moment I realized something beautiful. We hadn't saved each other. We had simply reminded each other how to live again. And as I sit here now telling this story, maybe a little clumsily, maybe with too many pauses, I keep thinking about how healing doesn't always look like a miracle. Sometimes it looks like two wounded people sitting on a bench, holding hands, choosing to stay. The truth is, he healed my wounds without knowing it. And maybe without knowing it, I healed his too. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that broken doesn't mean hopeless. Broken just means human. And sometimes all it takes is one unexpected person to remind you that your heart can bloom again. Even in the places you thought were dead forever. That's what he did for me. And somehow that's what I did for him. In the end, maybe healing isn't something we do alone. Maybe it's something we give each other without realizing it. Maybe it's something we find in the quiet, in the soft, in the small moments that become the reasons we stay alive. And I think maybe that's enough.